I was with the traffickers.
And your
I was
mom wasn't there with you?
The first month, no. The first month I was in the United States, being trafficked in the United States by a powerful billionaire who was basically triaging me and training me in his homes.
Who is this?
I'm not saying who that is yet. I have to be careful what I say. I can't just flop these names out. I have to.
Would this be a person we would know?
Definitely, you would know. You would know the name.
Alive or dead?
Dead. He was, he was taking me here. I was in the United States, so I was either in his homes, 3 of his homes I spent time in, or I was in the room in the daytime sometimes, in a bedroom, or I was even at a family's near DC for a week, basically parked in a family, nice family that treated me well, probably satanic family, and that were very happy to do a favor for this man. And then I was, after that, was taken to Germany, and I was there for another month in a facility in Heidelberg for what was my mind control training. And this is 1972, and I was 9 years old.
Mind control training at 9 years old?
Yeah.
Why did they take you there?
When I met this billionaire, so in 1972, you had the Bilderberg meeting that happened in Belgium. So for that event, Paul van den Boeynants made sure that he probably did many things around there, but basically to please this powerful American that was there for the Bilderberg meeting, he staged a ritual.
And so why would they need to train you, though?
The mind control training, he had plans for me. And, all right, I can say something. He had me in his homes and everything to get me used to the life of the elite so that I would know how to eat, so that I would recognize good clothes, so that I would be comfortable in these environments. And alongside that, we went to on one of the islands on the northeastern coast of the United States and saw there, and this was a Rothschild who was there.
Rothschild.
A Rothschild, yeah.
And is this who you're talking about?
Yeah, so I'm saying we were with Evelyn de Rothschild for 1 day only. And it was clear that this billionaire, who you would think is just as powerful as this Rothschild, was not as powerful in the network as he was. And he was asking for permission to make the star that he wanted to make of me. Well, he didn't want to make me into a star. He wanted to make me into an elite sex slave where I would become famous in France, and then with that role, I would attract the most powerful men in the world, and I would be able to spy on them for him and so forth.
Is that David Rockefeller?
I'm not saying. I can't say this. All right.
Only reason I say that is because I pulled up the list from 2012 attendees, and I went through all the guests on the right that says U.S. from the Bilderberg meeting.
Okay.
Rob, if you go a little bit lower and zoom in and you put U.S., right there, you'll see the names that shows. I know this is...
Just give me a minute. Well, I can't lie, but it's scary. Yeah, might as well. Okay, there you go.
You've never talked about this.
I've never said his name.
You know, you hear these stories and you wonder, there's no way these people are capable of doing something like that. At what point did you know it was him?
When he died.
2017.
Yeah.
So you didn't know till 2017.
But I knew a lot, but I didn't know that it was him.
So how did you know it was him when he died in 27? Because that was just 7
Immediately.
years ago.
Immediately. I knew immediately. I just saw his face. And first of all, I saw his face, and then immediately a lot of other memories came back with him.
How much time did you spend with him?
Well, I spent quite a lot of time with him in the beginning. So from 72 to 73, this training. So I spent quite a lot of time with him in the U.S. in that first month, in July of 1972, and spent time in his estate in Westchester, and also in his home in New York City, and also in his home in Maine. And on the way to Maine, on his sailboat, we stopped off at Rothschild, who had to give his permission for the persona that he wanted to make out of me. And then Rothschild invited me into the family. And I gave I had not been treated very well up until then. So suddenly I get a very nice invitation. I feel, even this training, even though there was a lot of sex training also, just let's not make any mistakes here. This is not like, I was just suddenly being treated really well. I was being trained sexually as well. But it was the best I'd ever seen in my life at age 9. And when I was invited,
Meaning treatment of elites, like lifestyle, wealth? Is that what you mean by treatment?
No, in the first 3 years in the network by Paul van den Boeynants, I was treated like absolute piece of dirt.
What does that mean?
I was the lowest of the low. He always treated me like, he wasn't worth the time for him to even have a chewing gum on his soul or something, and he just had to pull it off and just resented having to spend any time on me. But he was selling me all over, or whatever he was doing. He was using me for blackmail for people that were supposedly new, or he was giving me to depraved aristocrats. But he didn't want to, I was treated, most of the time I was treated like I was absolute piece of dirt, like I had no value at all.
Did he himself sexually abuse you or no, Paul?
He beat me up.
But not sexually abused
I did not get sexually abused by him. He was extremely sadistic. So he did not sexually abuse me. He abused other children, though. And I don't remember being sexually abused by him. But he and a few others that were in charge there just really would treat me like the lowest of the low. So I was used to sort of knowing that it was them, it was their fault. I knew that they treated me that way, but I know that I'm human. So I didn't really fully take it seriously. And I was kind of playing the game to survive, playing this game of whatever they needed me to do. I was doing it. And then in 1972, suddenly 3 years later, I got, treated as very special. And this treatment had a lot to do with the excitement that David Rockefeller felt over the fact that he loved being behind the scenes, creating this slave, this elite sex slave, who was going to make him millions. And I was already sold in the first year. In that year, till I gave my will to the Rothschild. And he asked specifically, will you be part of the family? And I said yes. And he asked me to say, I will give my will. And a year later, I did not give my will anymore. And that's why I'm here. That I got,
Why would Rockefeller do that if he's got billions at the time? That's a very powerful family.
He was a pedophile, first of all. And these families...
Rothschild and David, or more David?
The Rothschild, I don't think, was a pedophile.
But David...
He was more powerful, but he was not a pedophile. David Rockefeller was a pedophile. There's a lot of survivors. I work with survivors. There are a lot of survivors out there of David Rockefeller. But I saw him in a certain light, and I've met one other person All right, now that we named David Rockefeller, I can tell you that the place where I was taken in Germany, in Heidelberg, the doctor that was in charge there, Hans Harmsen, I have met another survivor that was also a special project of David Rockefeller. And Hans Harmsen, who was the doctor in charge there, she was there too as a special project of him. And she also came across Hans Harmsen.
Harmsen?
Hans Harmsen.
Harmsen.
Yes. There you go. There you go.
And who was he?
I think that he was in charge of the special project of David Rockefeller for the mind control training. And I know one other survivor who went through similar experiences as myself later on.
Did you ever meet him?
Meet him? Oh, yeah.
What was he like?
Horrendous.
Unpack it.
Okay. The way that you're trained in mind control training, it's based on torture. What I was used to doing as a child sex slave was to please men in some way or other, to get on their wavelength so that they wouldn't harm me, so that I could survive. With him, I never got anywhere. I never got through it at all. Most of these pedophiles, you could get through in some way. There's some way in which, I could sense intuitively what I needed to do to please them. So with him, there was nothing that I could do to get through to him. It was just completely mean and vicious. And one thing that he would do is I was forced to watch certain things to learn about men's behavior, whether it was, it was their weakness or their sexual preferences or their sexual
desires,
perversions, their sexual perversions. So we're not talking about regular sexual, we're talking about sexual perversions, to recognize those. And so I was forced to watch the films. And first I would see the man in the behavior, just his face, and then seeing him in the behavior, different things. And then I would need to guess based on a face what this person would do. And if I got it wrong, one thing that he did is he would just strangle me until I fainted. And in the fainting...
He would?
Yeah, he would, yeah. And in the fainting, he liked to strangle. And in the fainting, I would realize after a while that in these near-death experiences that my intuition was sharpening. And so it was punishment for not giving the right answer, but it was also part of the training to be able to get more intuitive and sense things without having to use your reason. And one thing he did was he would strangle me, but first he would say, "Was bedeutet das? What does this mean?" And he would point at his own face, and then he would strangle me. And so his face to me means being strangled, or it did. That's how the programmation worked. So when I actually came across his photo, I felt like I was dying. And it took a long time. And I do a lot of yoga and meditation. And I had to really just go into the breathing and really, really just work through that programmation that seeing his face means you're going to die from strangulation. You're going to asphyxiate.
He wanted you to know that.
That is how programmation works in the network. That you know it, and your body has a reaction. And also, it is a way to get you from A to whatever they need you to go. So if this prompt means that, and that was in Heidelberg, he wasn't there all the time. Most of the time, there were 3 handlers that were doing this.
So if you go back to that, Rob, that says right there, He was a bureaucrat in the Nazi Germany. He was responsible for proving eugenic sterilization performed on the disabled. He supported forced sterilization of the mentally handicapped and helped to carry them out to Protestant intermission institutions for which he was responsible.
David Rockefeller also was a eugenicist.
So when you're with David Rockefeller, are you in their estate? Are you in their house? Are you around their family? And if you are, who
Not
is...
around their family, no. But I was around, I was in 3 of his estates, as I said, and I was around his staff.
Did their staff know what was going on with you or no?
I was in bed with him. And they acted like nothing was happening.
You were in bed with them.
And the staff knew and was there, and they were just acting like that was all normal. I went shopping on Madison Avenue with him. He bought me some dresses and some clothes. And everybody, you can imagine, everybody's so happy to see him, so happy to serve him.
You don't think they're going to think it's weird that a young girl is with a very powerful billionaire?
I don't think today people would think that was weird because there's such a great desire to please those people. But this is 1972. Nobody thought anything. I could have been taken anywhere out in the open. A lot of it was out in the open, and nobody would have thought a single thing. These people were just so happy to serve him. He told his staff that I was his niece from Paris. Who cares?
While they're seeing you in bed with them.
Well, he didn't say it then, but they did see, but they acted like nothing was happening. I don't know if they were also controlled or if they were the right kind of personality. Or, I don't know. But I saw a woman and a butler, a woman and a man. Only those 2, and that was in the house in New York.
How did they treat you?
Very nice.
They were good to you?
Very.
How was he to you?
Well, most of the time he had this excitement. So a pedophile gets excited around children. And so there's a way in which they can start to feel alive when they're with children because it's their own little child that maybe is dead inside of them that's sort of starting to come to life because they relate to children in that way. They see they're trying to revive their own deadness, which dead from abuse or whatever it is. You know, they're trying to revive something. So they're seeing children at a certain age, usually the age that they were abused. And he was excited. And he was excited not only of being around me, and of course a child is also not somebody who's going to point out your flaws, yeah, right? A real partner will point your flaws to your flaws. And he had a slave who was already a child slave, who was, thinking the world of him, and that made him feel really good. So he was excited. And he was also excited at the idea of what he was making me into, because this persona that he was creating, that I was supposed to be a French singer, actress, and he was excited to be the secret man owner behind that persona. And I was sold during that year already, when I was still supposedly in training to become that persona. I was already probably sold. I mean, I was given to a German chancellor at the time. And that was Kurt Kiesinger, who I was driven to Germany. So the Belgians were the Belgian handlers would drive me to Germany, and then I would spend time with Kurt Kiesinger, who would take me to like little hotels. And again, no questions asked. Yeah, him. Yeah.
Before he became chancellor, he served as a minister president of 1958-66, president of Federal Council in 1960. He was a chairman of Christian Democratic Union from 67 to 71. And David introduced you to him? How did
Nobody
you meet
introduced me. I was just taken there.
You were just taken there.
Child sex slave is not introduced, it doesn't happen that way. But the Belgian handlers would take me. They would drop me off on the side of the road. And then he would pick me up, and then I would get in a car with him. And then he would drive me, and then we would arrive. And again, I was trained, so I knew how not to draw attention to myself. But also, he taught me to speak German. He was very enamored, and he might have been paying.
So I'm looking at this, when we're looking at some research, common methods used by traffickers: false promises, offering employment, education, or romantic relationships. 2, isolation.
This is different.
Separating victims from family and friends to increase dependency.
Different.
3, threats and violence, using physical harm or threats against the victim or their loved ones.
For sure.
4, debt bondage, creating a sense of indebtedness that the victim feels obligated to repay. Psychological manipulation, employing tactics like gaslighting to control the victim's perception of reality.
Mm-hmm. Yes, but you see, when you're talking about the network, which I again, you have David Rockefeller, you have the Rothschilds, you have the Belgians who are, connecting to that network. We're talking about a global network of people, of a combination of psychopaths and pedophile and, far gone pedophiles that are Satanists. And they sell their soul to Satan, and they want control. They have the resources. A lot of the children that are born into these families are abused from the beginning and are mind controlled as well. They are also tortured because what they do, other than the sort of like normal kind of trafficking, is that you get in, and either you are what I was in the beginning, like your life means nothing and you could be killed anytime. That was the first 3 years. But then once he took notice of me, and which was in a very strange circumstance.
He is who?
He is David Rockefeller.
Mm-hmm.
Once he took notice of me, and he was going to then use me for his purposes, then I would have been part of what I call the global network, where I would have been completely controlled as a star. That's where the mind control comes in. And then, using my natural talents and abilities and blood to create a person that is completely in their control, while they have been created the same way, and all these people are crazy. That is, this is everything goes into the PR of presenting an image that is really acceptable. And then everything goes into the PR of, it's not as if David Rockefeller didn't have access to the press. So what these people who are part of this murderous network, they use their resources to control their image. And that is, of course, that someone like me should never have too much reach. And what we don't understand is that it is one network. And of course, if they're friends, they're connected a lot through blackmail. Because the Satanists, there's what I call sincere Satanists who really sell their soul to Satan, and they have rituals, and there are sacrifices being made. And then there are those that just want to belong to the club of power. And, and then it depends. In the network in Belgium, well, it depends if someone gets sucked in. You have your integrity and you have your ideals, and you start out, and then what happens? If you get into that club, you will be asked to make choices, and either it's power and you stay with the club, or it's your integrity means that you cannot do this anymore. You cannot lie. In the beginning, it's to just like be quiet about what you see, having to do with sexual abuse usually. And then as it goes on, it becomes, you get involved, you're participating. And of course, it's not everybody that is going to be manipulable as a pedophile, because not everybody is going to rape a child. But those who don't, they know, and they keep quiet about it. So that's how it works. And
how long were you with David Rockefeller? 1 month? Or did you see him again after that?
I did see him again after that. I saw him again after the training, and I saw him again, especially a year later in April. I saw him.
73 or 70, 72?
73 now.
Okay.
April of 73. I saw him in Italy. And that's where I saw the most people that I recognized later. There were actually a lot of singers there. There were a lot of people that were in the entertainment industry, and this was my coming out. I was singing. I performed several songs. So there was some Jacques Brel songs because he's Belgian,
Jacques
like
Brel
myself.
song, really, like Ne me quitte
Ne me
pas,
quitte
or-
pas.
yeah,
That's what
yeah,
I sang.
yeah.
Yeah, Ne me quitte pas. And then
Un saut oublié tout. It's a beautiful, amazing song.
It's a beautiful
he's one of my
song.
favorite. And by the way, that song was sang by, I think, Julio Iglesias, I think Sting. They converted it in English. The meaning of the song is actually very interesting. The first time he sang that song on TV, he died at a very young age.
he died rather young,
yeah.
but he was alive then, and it was a popular song.
Was
and
he there at the event or no?
No, no.
Okay.
I never saw Jacques Brel, but I was singing the song, and what I had been trained by a famous French composer, singer, and he had showed me the choreography. Now, I didn't fully understand what was happening, but this choreography, I was sexualizing every line of that song. So you have the line, for example, I remember Le vieux volcan. There's a line about the old volcano that nevertheless still spouts fire. And for that, I remember I had to go sit on an old man's lap and I had to look down on his genitals because that's the old volcano that spouts fire, that still spouts fire.
In front of everybody?
That was the audience, yeah. And this is an audience of people that were in the sphere of Rockefeller, obviously, but this is like a satanic gathering. I mean, these were people that were in this club, and for whatever reason they wanted to be there, whether it was for fame or whatever,
When you're doing that, are they laughing or are they just like, oh, it's this great performance? What's
laughing.
the reaction?
No, laughing.
They're
Everybody laughs
laughing.
at the sex jokes of the 9-year-old. Absolutely. Absolutely.
You're 9 years old at the time.
Yeah.
Okay. And who's there? Some of the names that you're saying. Who's there at this
Well,
party?
I know you really want to hear names, and I really don't like to focus so much on the names, but Eddie Arnold was an American perpetrator that was there. And Eddie Arnold was... Yeah. So Eddie Arnold was somebody who really, really, really wanted to belong to the club. And I don't know how people got in there. Some of them are coming in through masonry. Some of them are coming in other ways because they get famous and then they get lured in. But he just really wanted to belong.
Now, when you say belong to the club, meaning just to be there.
Power.
But was he...
It's power.
But not abusing kids. You're not...
No, he abused me, yeah. I mean, yeah, he abused me. That week, so there was an entire week, and I was basically given to a lot of men there. Meanwhile, horrible things were happening.
Songs.
Yeah. Meanwhile, lots of horrible things were happening. There were rituals happening. It was like the only thing I can compare it to is maybe like I think of a Dionysian orgy. Have you ever read the books of Mary Renaud? Mary Renaud? Okay. She has described once, and I don't even remember which book, but she described a Dionysian orgy, and it was like I was back there. It goes on for days and days. And
But you see, if I look online, there's literally nothing online about accusations about Eddie Arnold.
can you say? You're not going to probably... I know a lot of survivors of David Rockefeller, but I don't think you're going to find any accusation online about David Rockefeller. It's all about cover up. It was very, very good. All the investment, all the money goes, I mean, not all the money, but it goes a lot to the image.
You gave a couple other names to me earlier. I don't want to say it until you're comfortable. One of the names was another famous politician from the West.
Yeah.
How did you meet him?
He was also there that week.
He was also there that week.
Yeah, Pierre Trudeau.
And what was the interaction with you?
Scary.
Was his wife also involved or just him?
I didn't see his wife, or I don't know. I didn't see anybody else but him.
But you vividly remember him. And when did you know it was him later on? Because at the time you were 9, 10 years old.
Yeah, again, this came much, much later. I don't remember exactly when I realized that it was him.
You don't remember when it came to you later that it was Pierre?
No.
Justin Trudeau's father, right? That's
Yes.
who you're talking about.
Yes.
And I mean, you've never mentioned his name before, right? No. Trudeau. What was that relationship like, or the experience like? Was it a one-day thing? Was it a repetitive that happened?
All right, I'll tell you something. David Rockefeller had me trained as a spy. So I was a sex slave, of course, and I was an elite sex slave now. And I was trained as a spy through the mind control training. And so that week, I was sleeping with men, and then I would go report on their weaknesses or their sexual preferences to David Rockefeller.
Why did he need that information? Is that how to blackmail and use it later on in negotiation?
For example. Or if he knows what they want, then he can give it to them sexually. So about Trudeau, I said that I could never please him as long as I was alive. That's how scary that was.
You could never please him?
If I was alive.
With Trudeau?
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean?
It means that he couldn't kill me because at that point I was not a throwaway child. And he scared me enough so that I then tell Rockefeller that that's what he wants, a child to kill. Then you understand that the next time he can, if he wants to use that, he can use it. He can use that information.
Rockefeller.
Mm-hmm.
So how many of these celebrities did abuse you during that specific event that you were at for you to come back and report to David?
Oh, God, I don't even remember. I was very busy. And at that time, and, I want to specify that when I was in Belgium, I always had a distance from the perpetrators, and I always knew that they were wrong and that I, was a human being, and that they, even though they treated me like nothing, that I actually, wasn't worth being treated that way. I knew that. When I was mind control trained, which is based on science, it's horrendous science from, probably related to some of the experiments that were done in the camps. And I know it's extremely, when I went into the mind control training, there was no guessing, there was no experimentation. It was just done very precisely to get the result that they wanted, so that I'm a high-functioning machine for their purposes. And I did not at that time have the distance to understand that I didn't want that anymore. I thought now, at age 9, I believed that I was this persona and that I was doing this. I wouldn't have called it abuse. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I mean, you become immune to it. It's like a mobster that kills somebody so many times. If you watch an interview with Richard Kuklinski, I think Richard, what's his last name, Rob? I think I'm saying it right. Iceman, and you see him in interviews when he's killing people, it's no longer a
Well, that's the network. In the network, this happens. And,
Right,
when you go to
Kuklinski.
any gang, you have these
Right.
little kids that get pulled in, and
Right.
it's either kill or die.
sure.
And then, so they get pulled in that way. And it's the same in the network, with violence and pedophilia.
hmm But let me stay on this with you here. So you then gave me a name. You said a woman. You didn't give me a name. You said a woman who would be seen as very innocent, because most of the time when we're thinking about this, you're thinking about man. Was this woman also at the same event?
Yes.
She would have to be in her 80s and 90s today.
Mm-hmm.
Politically related or business?
No, celebrity. Celebrity that I told you no one would believe. No one would believe it.
What? And this was in 73. That's 51 years, no, 70, yeah, 51
Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah.
That nobody would believe.
Nobody would believe today. No.
And what
Such
was...
an icon. This is it. We all have icons, right? We all have people that we look up to. And every icon that I had personally, people I never saw in the network, because I was only there for 5 years, you have to understand. That's a short time. I worked with people that were in much longer, that were born into it, that were in much longer. Every icon that I've had, almost every icon, I have had to let go of. Because I found out from somebody that I'm working with, completely private healing work that we do together. I really wish that we could talk more about the healing, because I feel like, I feel like we're talking a lot about names, and the healing is so important. That is, I think, the reason that I can speak is because I've healed so much, and I understand things that most people don't understand. And I like to speak about those things, like how that really works and everything in the mind, because I was being trained to become like them, and then I chose not to.
Yeah, I mean, it's and by the way, I want to speak about that as well, and also your book as we're going through this. Just trying to sit here and, you and I were talking, right? Where it's like most people don't want to talk about it. Everybody you've mentioned so far, I had a guy I did an interview with, and he started telling me all these weird stories. And I wanna believe all the stories he's telling me, because some of it is actual word when we use unbelievable. And the stories would get more and more and more exaggerated. But there was one pattern. Everybody he ever said anything about, they were all dead. So they couldn't defend the story, right? They couldn't
I don't just go and tell stories, first of all. I mean, it's taken me most of my adult life to even be ready to speak. The Dutroux case happened in 1996. I was encouraged to speak up then in 1998 when survivors of the same network that's in Belgium started to speak out. The Dutroux case took 8 years to go to trial. And then they were left with Marc Dutroux, his wife, and 2 others. Michel Nihoul was one of the defendants. Michel Nihoul I saw in the network. He was there then too. I was not going to speak out. I was not ready. I was afraid. I was afraid to speak out, and also I knew that I wasn't ready. It's not something you want to talk about, first of all. I am a really good writer. I really wish that I could have written stories that would be interesting and well written, and it would be appreciated, and I would be appreciated as a writer. I don't want to be talking about this stuff. I've accepted it because it feels that the divine has wanted me here and with this and talking about it, and I am. But it's not, I'm not here for my ego. It is, I get attacked a lot. I have to deal with a lot of stuff. I have to deal with a lot of miscomprehension, but also attacks. My book was supposed to come out in France more than a month ago. It's been blocked. This translation of my book, it's been blocked. The publisher has not been in contact with me at all. I know that he received at least one mail that was to discredit me. I mean, I've probably received a lot more by now. But anyway, things happen all the time to stop me from speaking out. I'm not just telling stories. I've been so careful to wait until I was ready to say anything at all, because I knew that if I'm going to get attacked and I'm going to go under, or if I'm going to get the love from people, I'm not going to be able to handle it. I'm going to, need it. And I can't need power when I'm going to speak about these things. You understand?
I don't think there's anything about power here. I believe this happens. I believe this happens all the time. And I believe it was way more back in the days till today, because back in the days, and by the way, today it's still happening today. You see movies like Sound of Freedom. You see movies like Liam Neeson, Taken 2, Taken 3. Why do movies do so well? And, Belgium is known for a lot of things. Europe, there's some of these countries are known for a lot of things. But to me, it's more... It's
a worldwide, it's a global...
Right. It's a $150 billion a year industry.
No. This is a global elite network with specific people in it, and they're not all friends. So there can be infighting happening as well. But it is, and when I think of politics, it's like manipulated division. There's so much manipulation, and it's all manipulated to keep people fighting each other, so that will not look at the imposed division that is really between the top and the bottom. And when you start looking at the top, this is happening now.
Who is the top?
Well, isn't Rockefeller the top? Isn't Rothschild the top? Aren't those people the ones at the top? No. So I'm taking all the risks speaking about it. I don't want to say anything. I actually don't even like to say the names, because the truth is, it's not out of loyalty. It's rather that what is right to say when. Yes, saying names eventually is important because I was there. It's my story. I should be able to say who it was.
What do you think about Jane Fonda and Julie Andrews? What do you think about them?
What do I think of people like that as potentially just like what I was gonna be, you see.
Got it. Potentially what I was going to be.
Yes, I was supposed to be a celebrity in France. So I was going to be singing, and I was trained as the sexy, the sexual animal. So that's what was being sold. So that's how these powerful men would then fall for me. And then I could maybe marry a president, that's possible. Whatever it was, but it was really Rockefeller who was behind it.
Okay. So when you're spending time with Rockefeller, you said you didn't know it was him until he died in 2017.
Yeah.
How is that possible? If you're going to these events and these parties and they're mentioning his name, don't they say David Rockefeller?
But the name, I never heard the name. I know him as David.
So they wouldn't say, please help me bring up the, great David Rockefeller.
If I saw his face, I probably would have seen it, because the thing is, I would have not done well if I'd remembered him while I was alive, because he got so deep. You understand? I was a child sex slave. I had not known any love, and this was the best I got at that time.
Right.
And because of that, I would have maybe, there's a lot of parts in me that were very attached to him, that loved him very much. It's part of the reason also why I wouldn't want to necessarily say the name. It feels like disloyal somewhere too, believe it or not.
To who, though?
To him, because there's still parts inside of me that are also attached to him. And of course, I've learned a lot. The more I heal, you see, you're talking like somebody who doesn't understand healing very well, because the healing comes from, how is it possible? It's very possible that I had vague memories of an American and some positive connection to that. But then there was also the memory of how I had met him, which was horrific. And I'd grieved for that. And I in the 90s, I was crying over that situation. And I haven't necessarily you know, healed completely. But at the moment, what it is that something begins to manifest, and usually through the body, because our trauma is stuck in the body. And then usually there's a period of, sometimes it's just boom. When he died, it was immediate, and I immediately got the memories, and there was no question. But in the time that the memories come, and, you know, this is, mind control is about dissociation, you know. It's you get traumatized. Why? Because it dissociates you. And then you don't know. You don't know what your other half is doing. So when we're talking about somebody who has an amazing front, when they're in their front persona, they don't know what they do in their shadow. That's in the shadow. So the mind control is to create dissociation, to create parts that will go, alters, that will go and do things, specific things. And that, of course, that stays. When you're an adult, you're dissociated. So you don't remember most of it or nothing. And it just comes back little by little. It's a very long and arduous process. And it requires tremendous courage to begin to open up to the possibility. Because the first thing that comes, when I had the first flashback of this, I was like, no. First of all, I thought, if that's true, I'm going to kill myself, which was also programmed into me. But I struggled so hard with this is not true. This is not who I am. I have an idea of myself. Okay, doesn't work very well. You know, this identification as me in this family, and things aren't really adding up. And at the same time, I never want this to be true. It's impossible. And without the Dutroux case, I had no context either, but I was getting the flashbacks one after the other. The therapist I was with didn't want to know it. She wasn't ready. She didn't want to hear it. She dismissed it. Some things I didn't even bring to her because I knew she wasn't going to be open to it. So first there was the Dutroux case, when I suddenly realized that all my flashbacks suddenly made sense. And then when things start to make sense, then suddenly a bunch of other things start to make sense as well. Like, for example, behaviors of mine, or what I call cover memories. There are certain things that I know, and I've always known them, and I may have put them in a certain context, but suddenly, if this is true, if this, what I'm pulling out of the shadows here, if that is true, then that also makes sense. And so it becomes a personal investigation into these memories.
Where do you live right now? In the state, not state.
In New York.
You live in New York. And how long you been in the States?
Since 1985.
And you don't know who David Rockefeller is till the day he died in 2017 in New York? The Rockefeller Center? The Rockefeller this?
I told you I never heard the name Rockefeller.
You can't, that's not possible.
Yes, of course it's possible. I'm a child sex slave. Why would I hear the name Rockefeller? Who says it? Nobody told me. Nobody said it. He didn't say it. He was David to me. Now, I heard the name Rockefeller as an adult. Of course, there's songs about the Rockefellers, but that didn't mean anything. That name didn't ring a bell to me.
Yeah, but I mean, he's everywhere. His picture, you would see it. So it's not.
I didn't think that this was going to be the kind of conversation we were going to have. Frankly.
Well, I never know what kind of a conversation I'm going to have. I simply go into a conversation.
I feel like I'm combative almost, because I feel like...
No, to me, it's not that. To me, the main thing is the following. I think this is a very serious issue. I think it's such a serious issue that in America, I'm disappointed with our politicians that they don't spend enough time talking about this, nor does the mainstream media. And we've covered stories like this, God knows how many times. 359,000 missing children in 2022, according to the FBI. Never once do you hear these guys get up there and campaign and talk about this kind of stuff. It's just we're talking about all the other stuff.
We had Dennis Hastert, who was the Speaker of the House, who was actually jailed for pedophilia.
If what you're saying is true, you're saying your loyalty is to Rockefeller.
I'm not saying that. Obviously, I'm speaking about it, and I've been speaking about it.
Right.
My loyalty is obviously not with the abusers. It never was. It was in a very controlled situation. I was being prepared as a child to become part of them. I said no at age 10. Now that is something that some children do, but most don't. Most don't have the strength to do that. So no, my loyalty is essentially not with Rockefeller, and it's not with any of those people. That's why I'm
only saying
talking
it because
about
you
it.
said that. You said, I feel like a certain
Yes,
level
because
of...
a part of me is
I'm
still
repeating
attached.
what you're saying. I'm not
It's
saying
like
what I
if
said.
people
It's
talk
your
about your
words.
parents a certain way, maybe
Right.
at some point, no matter what the reality, maybe at some point you're going to feel some emotional strings
Yeah,
there.
but you're very comfortable not talking positively about your mom, but you're not very comfortable talking negatively
My
about
mother never
Rockefeller.
gave me as much as he did, and that just happens to be the truth. He gave me reflections that I never received
Did you ever
before.
reconnect with your mom or no?
I forgave her before she died.
Did you ever reconnect with her?
I forgave her before she died. I called her to forgive her before she died.
When you called her, how much longer after she died did she die?
A year after.
Did you guys ever spend time together again or no?
No, I did offer to come to see her when she was dying.
So how old were you the last time you saw your mom?
I don't remember, but it's a long time ago.
12 years old, 14 years old, 18 years old,
Oh,
22
no.
years old?
I was an adult. I was in touch with her as an adult. And as these memories were coming back and I was working on these things little by little, it became clear that she was still the same person, that not, it's just like there's this idea of what my mother was, which is what I needed to live with as a child to believe, to survive. And then there's the reality. And when the reality became clear, she was acting just exactly the same as she would have. She never changed. And really, there was no reflection there that I would have needed to emotionally grow. It was all false. It was all a projection. Had nothing to do with who I am. I was like, she needed me to be bland, either good and bland and ugly, or evil and powerful. And the David Rockefeller saw, even Paul van den Boeynants saw things in me that my mother never did. He recognized things that were actually intricately mine. So for my emotional growth, I needed his...
You ever seen the movie Red Sparrow?
No, I don't need to see those movies because there's a lot of movies and they take like little aspects of what happens in the network. Yeah.
Oh, I fully believe the network exists. I am not from the school of thought that this doesn't exist. This is a real thing. I have a lot of friends in this space who are former CIA guys, Delta guys, military guys that, it's as real as it gets. It is happening. The only reason I asked this question from you is one of the recent stories that was, all over the news in America is over Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell.
Right.
When you hear the types of stories where billionaires give him $151 million of consulting fee,
Right.
I was like, well, who the hell gives who $151 million? Oh, he will help me out with my taxes. That much? Maybe $1 million? Maybe $500,000? I don't know anybody that gets paid $158 million of consulting fee. Leon Black gives to Jeffrey Epstein. It's kind of weird, right? When people ask,
Well,
that's the amount of money I
that's
give.
very, I take that for granted. What people don't know is that I work with survivors again, and several survivors, younger survivors that I know were trained by him. And so...
Who? Jeffrey
Epstein.
Okay. Yep.
He was a
I
programmer.
thought you were talking David. That's why I'm asking.
Excuse me. Yeah. No, Jeffrey Epstein.
Uh-huh.
And they were trained by him, some from when they were babies. So just the story that's out there now is that, the teens and everything. And then we talk about, the abuse of teens, but really he was training children of all ages.
Jeffrey.
Yeah.
Did you ever meet him or Ghislaine?
No.
Never met him, even in New York?
No, I was out in 1974. I was out.
Right.
Yeah.
And what did you do after you got out? What jobs did you do? When you came to New York, what were you doing in the 80s, 85?
Well, I want to talk a little bit about how I got out, because normally you don't get out.
Okay. Tell us. How did you get out?
Look, first, the week that I was telling you in Italy, it was in Italy nearby Lake Como, so where I was sleeping with all these men and where these horrific things were happening.
Men and women, I think you said to me.
There were
right?
men and women,
Right.
absolutely, but I was sleeping with the men. I was not trained to be with women. I was only trained as a sex slave for men.
Mm-hmm.
And these horrible things were happening all week. And the end of the week, and this is April 30 is an important day for the Satanists. I'm not exactly sure why, But by the end of the week, I was going to have my big, I had already had the singing, you know, I'd already had the performance for everybody there. And then I was going to have the ritual that was how I was going to be part of them. Another I will, perhaps, you know, you have to say, I will. So you have to give your will to the network, to Satan. And so this was going to be my big entry. And I knew better. I didn't want to do. I knew I didn't want to. I didn't want to pay that price. I didn't want to pay the price that it would take to be part of it. And so I did everything that I needed to do because I had been trained in a way that I knew not to say no. But after that, the next time I saw David Rockefeller, I rebelled. And then I was immediately tortured. I was thrown in a cage, in a dungeon, and tortured for several days.
By him?
No. He never touched. He was always kept. He watched, and he was there for some of it. He was verbally telling me that I was absolutely worthless. But Hans Harmsen came too. And
excuse me.
No. And basically, I was retrained for several days to make sure, you know, that I would feel the lowest of the low, and that I was absolutely worthless and